Welcome to Wellness Radio with Dr. Jeanette-Gallagher as your host. Her show discusses topics of health, wellness, and spirituality, and is about discovering your place in this great universe, from your cells to the cosmos. Along with her guest, in casual conversation, she strives to ask the difficult questions that may be holding you back from a vibrant life, and shares new ideas that may inspire you to make a change in your life that you only can see in your dreams. And now, here is Dr. Jeanette-Gallagher.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Wellness Radio. This is Dr. Jeanette-Gallagher, and it's a pleasure to have you with us here this evening. Tonight, we are going to be talking about our children, our family members, our loved ones in times of trouble, addiction, pain, incarceration, grief, sadness, separation, and the times in which we say, what in the world is happening? What's happened in our world? How has life been changing? What's coming down the pike? What are we trying to hold off? What are we just saying, I have no answers? Put our hands up in the sky and we just say, God, I don't know what to do, how to do this, or where to go from here. What happens when the world in which we are handed doesn't fit the book we were given when we were born, the way we raised our children, the way our children turned out, perhaps even the way we interact in the world? What do you do? It truly comes to a kind of cataclysmic kind of precipice point, we call it. We are hanging over the edge with our fingernails, and nothing is going to save us. The cavalry is not coming. What do you do now? Today, my guest is Lorri Britt. Her book is My Heart Behind Bars, A Mother's Journey of Grief, Incarceration, Love, and Forgiveness. And Lorri will be telling us exactly what it looks like from hanging over the edge. Lorri, thank you so much for joining us today. It's a pleasure to have you with us.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
So happy to have you, Lorri, because I think so many times people will say, I'm not telling my story is too harsh. People will run away screaming, or some will recoil and say, whose fault is it, and start pointing fingers. Don't you think when our children have issues, the things hang up in their lives, their life path doesn't turn out like everyone else's? The darts seem to come out and people are just vicious.
They can be, for sure, absolutely.
Let's look at, Lorri, your life story. You said in your book, that you had grown up with a lot of issues in your life. I, too, have had very similar, as I call it, parallel life, with a lot of issues of addiction, a lot of real dangerous things in our lives. Do you think that perhaps we as mothers were made for this role?
I'm not sure if anybody is really made for the role. I think that as we grow and develop, we tackle what we're capable of. I'm not sure if that's really what you're asking. It's in the sense that I do believe that our life paths build us up for what we have to endure as a mother in the capability of enabling our children to grow and evolve.
Yeah. A lot of times people will say, why me? Why did it happen to me? Or I've been running away from it, or it shouldn't happen because. And I think what happens, we get a lot of story. Do you know what I mean? People are saying, put it over there, or they run away from it. They try to change their name, so to speak. They move to a different city, those kind of stories. When things start happening in our lives and our children's lives, that people will say is not so great. But truly, in essence, I think that we as mothers have to look at ourselves for just 2 seconds and say, what is it today? How can I help? And how can I help myself or my children? Isn't that when you just have to freeze for the moment and say, I don't know what to do?
100%. I think I did a lot of, I don't know what I'm supposed to do. I better just sit quiet for a minute and try to figure it out. or sometimes you have a huge desire that pushes you in a direction that you didn't think you would go at all.
Yeah. Let's talk about our children when these life-altering things coming up. Start out with addiction, or many will go to jail. Some will have crimes. Others will say, I've fallen off the road. Do you think that sometimes they're asking for help in some way?
I think it depends on the situation at times. I think that when they're asking for help, it shows up a little bit different. And then there are times when I believe it is part of their life journey, and it's the path that they're there to take. And no matter how much you offer or stand beside them, the help is not available because it's not what they want or need. It's just a journey they are to take for their own life lessons.
Yeah, it's really hard as a parent to stand there and watch your child go through these really dangerous, destructive, very painful events in their lives. However, just as you shared, you said about standing alongside of them. Sometimes many mothers have tried to carry them, tried to hold them or shelter them or even do the work for them. Do you think that's also an option in many instances?
I think it happens a lot. I don't know if it's really, it's an option because a parent will choose it. I don't know if it's the best path. It's like leading a horse to water. You can only lead them to the water. You cannot force them to drink. And if you carry the weight for your children or you do all the work, whose lesson is it? Then the children aren't learning the lesson, or the young adults, and you're carrying a heavy burden that is really not yours to carry. I think it's very detrimental to parents to think that they can fix their children. I think you have to have an opportunity to step back, look at them, and accept them for who and what they are and the journey they are on, and it has nothing to do with your journey.
Right, because it's also, too, about looking, as you said, about your journey, because a lot of times people will say, oh, now it's broken me. Like a lot of times when people have a child that dies very early, they'll say, well, I feel cheated. I didn't get this. I didn't get that. And I look at them and I say, but that's your story. That wasn't their story. Perhaps?
100%, yes.
That's really hard to say because sometimes we know that our children are becoming broken down with addictions. Let's start with that one first. And Lorri, if you could share your story about your children with addiction. I know with mine, it's been lifetimes of generations of addiction in our family. And my children, it's been, let's just pick up the sword and keep walking again. And it was very difficult. And it took me out for a big period of time. But then I came through on the other side and had to let it go. For myself, I felt like I needed to do that for myself to be able to heal through that and then be able to let them go so that they could find their own path to heal. Do you think that perhaps sometimes people want to listen to our stories and they say, how can I jump some of those steps? I don't want to go through that pain.
Oh, yes. Yeah, I do believe that people would love to jump through it and get from start to finish and not feel anything in between, 100%. Who really wants to feel pain? Nobody. However, it's part of the process.
Right, and with your children, can you share the stories, how they started?
Well, Drake is my birth boy, and he, right from get-go, I could tell that he had some challenges, in his disposition and how he behaved at a very, very young age. So I intuitively knew that he was going to have some troubles. What they looked like, I was not 100% sure. And Christopher came into our life when he was younger. He started to hang out with Drake at about 6 and then really hovered around a lot about 13-ish, 12, 13-ish. And they're just peas in a pot, and I gather birds of feather flock together, and they had matching pictures, and that's why they bonded. And I was a stable home for Chris to hang out at. And their behavior was, there was a lot of partying, there was a lot of not owning any of their own stuff. Some of it was like, life was happening to them, not for them. They wouldn't embrace their own behaviors or couldn't even look at them. They didn't really have great high self-esteems. I did notice that that's when the validation from outside worlds, they would look for people that would let them believe they were better or funny, and if they were fulfilling somebody else's belief about them, they were more fulfilled. And then that turned into drugs and alcohol, then drugs, and it just escalated till the alcohol and drugs took pretty much possession of them. But we have a family of it. Like Drake's biological father is a recovering heroin addict, and my mom was a prescription junkie, and her father was an alcoholic, and my dad's parents were alcoholics. So we have a tendency to have alcohol and addiction in our family, and then we have mental health as well. So I was able to look at some things, but I was not able to nip it in the bud or pass the tools that could have helped them sooner. I think we just had a path to follow till we got to a place that they were like, okay, now we have to do things differently. It was extreme, mind you, but that was the journey it was.
But also to the idea is that when you were going through the process, you weren't meant to have such a way of saying it, what was going on, and how you can look at it in reflection. You were meant to be down in the trenches. And I think sometimes a lot of people will say, if they're in the trenches with it, it's like you're going through the emotions, the feelings, the everyday, events that are happening. People think that you can just bounce yourself out of that because you can be smarter. Your mind can manipulate the situation, or there's some key out there that you just have to find, and it will make everybody better, hunky-dory, and life will be great again. So I think there's a lot of times people will say, find me that key, and they go on a seeker's journey to find the key to fix everything, But instead, we're really, what you and I are asking and sharing our stories, is that be in the trenches for what it is, because it has a purpose. Do you think?
Absolutely. Absolutely. If I wasn't in it and not, if I didn't go through what I went through with the boys, I don't believe I would be the person I am today. I mean, without those, it allowed my heart to expand and to be bigger than what it was. It allowed me to look at my children for who and what they were, and still love and accept them. It took my belief of what I wanted them to be or how I thought it could be or would be out of the equation, which was heartbreaking but beneficial.
Yeah. I think that we as humans expect that life is supposed to follow a certain kind of book, so to speak. You go to school, you have all your accolades, you get a house, you have kids, a job, and a legacy, and that's the way life is supposed to play out. And that's a very limited kind of experience of life. But anytime somebody has an event that goes outside of that, we tend to want to push them back in because we say someone else won't like you, or you won't be accepted here, or don't do that because it'll be on the internet forever, or you don't want to have this because that'll be your record forever. And we kind of feel like, I think sometimes, I don't know if you were, but you always felt like you were right at that button. You were saying, please don't cross behind me, please don't cross behind me, because that's a point of no return for my dreams of your life. Do you think perhaps you might have had a glimpse of that?
I may have when they were younger. They had already done behaviors that I knew they would have to live with for the rest of their lives before this big event. So I believe that got nipped in the bud quite young. And so, no. I mean, yes, when they were younger, but by the time this event had happened, I could already see two sides of the coin, and I just accepted it for what it was. I had, at this point in time, realized their journey was their journey. And as much as I thought I was the teacher because I was the parent, I was incredibly wrong. I believe my children have taught me far more in life than I believe I taught them.
Yeah, I think sometimes we say as parents, well, why aren't they listening to me? I'm telling them what to do. I'm showing the way it's supposed to be. I'm getting all the books. I'm getting all the therapists. Everything is here. Why are they not taking it? And then they go out, and then they're drinking, or they're on a binge, or they don't come home, or they commit a crime. And you feel like sometimes parents feel like they're always picking up the pieces of their kid's life. Do you think sometimes those are words that people will use in the process?
I believe so. I believe that a lot of people, when they're trying to fix it, feel like they are picking up the pieces. I think, I believe that when you come to a point where you realize that you are not the fixer, that you are just, it's like I described in the book, you know, when they're young, you're on center stage, you're the star, and then you kind of become the sidekick, and then you're in the front of the movie theater, and then you're in the middle of the theater, and at the end, you're at the back, and all you're doing is watching. That's all you can do. It's no longer you are no longer center stage. They have their own movie, their own reel that's playing out. That is, you're just watching. You're not even a star in it anymore. You're just a side person out there in the theater watching their life unfold before them, and all you either like the movie or you don't. And if you don't like the movie, then you have choices to make of how you're still going to sit through it and watch it and support it.
Let's talk about the idea when kids are just actively in all kinds of things, and we say, okay, they're now in their 20s and their 30s. What do I do now? And, you know, you're much older, and you're saying, I need to step away. I need to disconnect. And people will say, I can't do that because they are my kids. And I think that's about ownership as a parent. Do we really own our children and their stories? Or are they children that I birthed in and they have their own story, that I don't own them?
I would go to the second part of that question. I believe that we birthed them, but they definitely have their own story and their own journey. We do not own them. We are just the birthing canal to bring them into this world.
Yeah, because a lot of times, I mean, I hear this all the time. People will say, but they're my kids. And then even let's take it on a different story. They're my parents. They're my husband. It's my story. It's my job. It's my house. And they get so stuck in this silo of existence that anything that shatters that glass, they can't cope with it. Let's talk about parents that say, you know, I'm new to this. My kid is just acting out and I don't know what's going on. How do I start? You and I will probably say, look at it for what it is and be in the moment, and it will guide you, perhaps?
Absolutely. Yeah. Try not to spend too much time trying to figure it out. You'll know what you have to do when you have to do it.
Yeah.
Your kids will tell you, basically. Sorry.
That's okay. So what about when people will say, but I don't know what that means. I don't know what it means that I'm supposed to know what to do. I'm looking at it and I'm doing all things that are wrong. Well, maybe those things that are appearing as wrong have a purpose somewhere, somehow in the bigger picture.
Oh, for sure. My belief system is, and I'm not saying it's everybody's, that you will do what you do until the right thing comes about. So it's like life. You try things, you make a choice, it doesn't work, you try something else. But it guides you. It's like a zigzagged step to get you to the destination that you need to be. Am I making sense, or does that make sense? It's like, so you see your kid is behaving poorly. You think, oh, I have to do that. And the reason you think you have to do that is whether it's society placed it in your mind, or you read it in a book, or you've done something like that. And you think, oh, I need to try this because that's what it tells me to do. And then it doesn't work. And then you're kind of stuck in a different choice in a different direction. And that's where you're like, oh, you know what I really want to do, or what I first wanted to do but didn't because this said I had to do this. You guide yourself, whether it's a choice you make from a book in the beginning. Eventually you get to a place between you and your child where you can look at it and it will be like, I need to do this. And sometimes needing to do this is just stepping back and allowing your child to have a fall, to have a moment where they get to look at themselves. You're not in rescuing or directing, or I think as parents we tend to want to rescue the children a lot, and if we don't ever let them have a failure, they don't ever know how to pick themselves up.
Let's talk about when the failure really happens, when you really get to that end point and they are being taken away to jail, or you know that they simply cannot get up off of the ground, or they are just totally empty. And you look into their eyes. I'm sure you've done this. You look into their eyes, and you just don't even know what you feel or not feel anymore, but you know that you just feel this total deep sadness, pain, and grief, and you can feel the love coming, but you just don't know what to do with it. You almost feel like you just can't give enough for them to feel enough love to be able to know they are loved. Do you think?
Yeah, I believe that happens when you realize that you are not their keeper. For myself, when the boys were incarcerated, I broke. Like, it was
right.
I was so sad that my day-to-day life had changed so dramatically, and that they had done something so horrific, which I never thought they were really capable of. But I knew that it was not me, it was them. And with looking at them, like the first time I saw them, I remember thinking, man, I still love you. I still am here. And I get that you don't love yourself right now, and I can love us both, but I can only do it for so long. Eventually you are going to have to look at yourself, accept who you are, and be okay and grow. And you're either going to choose to grow and be a human that you love and or can live with, your choices,
right,
or you will no longer be, right? Like, you're going to just be a totally different human than I ever knew in the beginning, because I think it changes them as well as it changes you.
And that's important, too, is because when you have children, they become like, sort of like you recognize them, you know what they're going to do, you can anticipate their moves or what they say when they're very young. But when they start to grow up, they start to have a mind of their own and they do these things. However, after, just as you shared, when you break and they break, it's almost as if you can hear this big slamming door. It's a steel door, and it just, there's no way of going back. You will never, ever get that story back. You have to create a new way of you being you and them being them, and find a new way to join together. Don't you think? Because if you do take those fragments from the past, what happens is those old stories seem to come along like bed bugs. You know what I mean? They just can't get out of the way. And then you're still stuck in shame, pity, and guilt, you know, so to speak. So
agreed.
Yeah, and you get stuck with this story that you just can't get out of your head. So, you know, we've seen it a lot of times when people get, they're in recovery and someone will say, well, you know, you used to do that, or that's how you used to be. And you're going, oh, there it comes again. You know, this is who I am today. Can you stop the story, slam the steel door, and start a new way of being? Do you think?
I believe if you're going to have a relationship with your children after what we went through, absolutely, you have to shut a door. And I believe not only with what my children went through with me, but also, I mean, with my ex-husband as a recovering heroin addict. I cannot always go back to how he used to be or the things he did, because that's in the past. There's nothing that has nothing to do with our future. I know that's a cliche of, you know, leave what's behind you because you can't bring it forward, but it's the absolute truth. They are not the same person. My kids are definitely not the same people they were before they went to prison. I am definitely not the same person as before they went to prison. We are totally different people with different thoughts, different beliefs, a different way of navigating through our lives together.
Yeah. And it definitely is sometimes a good place to be. But, however, I think a lot of times, too, I don't know if you do, but I know I have in the past, is I always would have an edge, and I would say, what's going to happen today at the end of the day? How's this day going to play out? Still feeling like they can still fall over the edge. Something can still happen. In other words, you're still at that guarded moment waiting for the next shoe to fall. Do you think?
I've had that. I don't know if I have it as much anymore. I want to say my blessing was my ex-husband, so I already had gone through some of that, when they got clean and sober, and then they relapsed again, and I've had it throughout my life with my family. So I when the boys first got out, I had a bit of it, but it's been quite a few years now, and I have more faith in believing that it's their journey, and no matter what my fears are, no matter what happens, it really isn't up to me, and I have no control. And so that took a while, but I definitely have let that, the part of anticipating, waiting for the shoe to drop has dissipated. It's not very much in my life anymore.
But
not
it's
with
also,
these two,
too,
anyways.
Lorri, I think it's also important, too, Lorri, to say is that wherever you are along the path with your children, be it that they're 6 or 7 or 10 or 16 or 30 or 40, and all of a sudden things start to happen, be in the place you're in. Don't try to say, we're going to have this intellectual mind and I'm going to be able to rationalize this and everything will be hunky-dory and I will be good to go. The answer is that you're both in an experience at this time. Feel it for what it is. Do your best right now, and you will get to the next step, and the next step, and the next step. I know for myself, I'm almost 70. This has been 7 decades of this stuff, Can I tell you it's ever going to end? I don't know. Can I tell you it's ever going to be perfectly better? I don't know. But all I can do is live for today. And that's pretty much when you can look back in your story in retrospect and say, I can only live for today. So it may take a long journey, may take a lifetime, may take many lifetimes, but sometimes we want to run ahead and say, I can't do this anymore, fix me today, or fix them today. Be in the moment and stay where you are and look around and see what you can do. Maybe you just have to be quiet for the day. Maybe you have to go to bed for the day. Maybe you need to get out there and pull them out of the gutter. Maybe you need to go find them. Maybe you need to go to the police. Maybe you need to visit them in jail. But do whatever it is for today and take just today, and that's all you can do. Do you think?
Absolutely. That was a hard one for me to learn for a while. I'm not going to say I'm great at it, but I'm way better at it. Yeah, today is all I have for sure.
But that's important to tell people because I think they want to have the answers, and they're seeking and they're wasting so much money and time seeking that they aren't attuning to actually what's going on. Do you think?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I mean, we all want to miss the yucky parts of it all. Right? Nobody wants to feel crappy or horrible or feel like a failure or not doing enough or not good enough. I mean, we all have some sort of crappy program that runs through our brain. So breaking it and learning to just exist in the day, it can be work.
Yeah, it's really difficult sometimes. I think also, too, let's talk, Lorri, about when other systems fail and things break apart. Let's say you lose your job because you're trying to help your children, or you get a divorce because they can't put up with it anymore, or you lose your family members who say, why don't you do this, that, and the other? Let's talk about all those arrows that start to come to you as a parent as a result of the way in which your child is presenting. How do you walk through that?
Well, I haven't had a ton of those. I mean, I've had them. I did quit a job to be more present in the boys' lives when they were going sideways. And it wasn't because I thought I had to quit my job. It was a choice because I wanted to be more present. I wanted to make sure that I was providing the best I could provide for my children while they were going sideways. And then I've had many, many fights with my current husband, who is not the father of my children, because he believed that I needed to not go get them when they called, or I needed to get more sleep, or I needed to discipline them, or if it was just a matter of doing this, they would be better. In my heart of hearts, I knew that's not how it worked. I knew that just telling them to be better or disciplining them for something wasn't going to change their direction. It wasn't going to make them be better people. It was going to segregate us. And I always wanted to be a solid. I always wanted to make sure that no matter what was happening in my children's lives, they knew that unconditionally, to the best of my ability, I loved them. So no matter what shitty, pardon my language, no matter what poor behavior they did, I was still going to be present. So with that, I mean, there was many fights. And for myself, it came to a point of, if I felt like I needed to do it, so say I felt like I needed to get Drake, I would get Drake. If I felt like I needed to pick up Christopher, if the phone rang at 2 and I wanted to answer it, I would answer it. And what I did with the you shouldn't do that or you can't do that or the arguments, I just stopped, because ultimately how I wanted to feel and how I wanted to present myself to my kids was up to me. It wasn't up to what other people thought or how they thought I needed to behave or the less they thought I needed to do or the more they thought I needed to do. It 100% came to me. So the opportunity for my husband was to either get some help, understand, or leave. Right? I could explain myself over and over and over again. However, if he was unwilling to look at anything but his narrow-minded way, then I couldn't. There's nothing I could do about that. It's no different when people would say to me, your children need to be better, or how do you handle that, or you need to do this for your kids to make them better humans. My kids are great humans. They made some poor choices. They have some lessons to learn, but they are good humans. So I just disengaged. I don't feel like I needed to justify their journey. Their journey is their journey. So I hope that makes sense. It does when I'm speaking it and saying it. I just don't know if I'm articulating it in a way that makes sense to everybody else. I just don't believe you have to. Their journey is their journey, and how they behave is theirs. And if I want them in my life or I choose to have them in my life, then that comes with some sort of acceptance that that's their journey. So I don't need to do anything to make people like them or dislike them or justify why I love them, which I did for a long time. And then I realized I don't need to do this. This is just the way it is, and I'm okay with it.
Yeah. I think a lot of times we always want to try to save them, because what is the ultimate fear that we have? It's death, right? So if we have that ultimate fear of death, that their life is going to end in perhaps a very nasty way or very destructive or whatever, we kind of in a way feel like our connection to them will then be severed. It'll be ended. It'll be a death for us as parents, too, because then we no longer are a parent because our child has died. I think that is very profound. It goes through everyone's mind with addictions or with anything that's going on in a child's life. We think of this constantly. However, we will never, ever, and I rarely see it, will we ever verbalize those words. I fear the death of my child because I will no longer exist or have the connection as the parent. And don't you think perhaps that is the underlying current that so many people are afraid to verbalize?
Oh, 100%. I just went through that with my other boy, Josh. I'm completely different from Drake and Christopher. So, yeah, I do believe that to be true.
Yeah. So, I mean, how do you even come to it? I know with myself, my child had tried to commit suicide like so many times, like almost 13, 14 times. And it got to the point where, okay, death is just a breath. You're breathing now, you're not in a second. And that wall of fear is that I could not, no matter what I could do, be, or what he could do or be, or anything, all of that was just words. It was just breathe now, not breathe then. And it's as simple as that. That's what death is. And I went, okay, I'm making it so much more, and I'm putting so much emphasis within this paradigm. It needs to stop. And when I said that, he just stopped. And it was like, okay. But still, I know at any time I could get a call, and he may or may not be here. But it isn't this thing that I'm not going to have the fear of the emotions and the feelings and the grief and the pain and all that. You will have that. It's just that you understand in some place it's okay. It's there. This is part of whatever the story is, and I just need to show up. And that's really a very hard place for people to come to and to reflect back on. Do you think?
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, I struggled, as you and I have discussed before, with. When Josh went through it, I wanted to rescue him, and I wanted to be there and present and validate how much I loved him, and thinking that was going to somehow make it better or make him want to live. And it wasn't until not very long ago that I was like, this is just like Drake and Chris. It's just a different situation. It's just presented differently, but it's still a lesson and a life learner, where now it is Josh is on his life path and his journey, and these are his choices and his decisions, and I needed to step back and take that breath that we had talked about and just be quiet and realize all I can do is be there and love him, and if this is his choice and his life journey, it doesn't change how I feel and think about him. It's just his life journey, right?
Right. You know, I think a lot of times people will, it's very tough, I think, because a lot of times people will say, but they're alone. And in essence, they are not alone, because unconditional love is a constant rider alongside of us. We just don't have to validate it as love in the way, the definitions that we use. You know, unconditional love is something so different you can't even put a word on it because it has no words. And I think sometimes if we know unconditional love, we could say it's just this sense that emanates, and it's not something that is a way I can define it. And if you can get to that place, just as you and I have with our children, we can understand that we've always been there alongside them, but because they're never alone, because that unconditional love is there. That's perhaps, I would say, I don't really have a word for it. That's the step of a parent that's been through it, and we can share our stories, and we can say, this is where we are in our knowing and in our reflection. Because that's a pretty hard place to be. It's a great place to be, but it's also a unique place to be. And that's where you and I are currently, don't you think?
Absolutely. Yeah, I don't know a ton of people that have had to step into it, for sure.
Let's talk in closing, Lorri, about sometimes when people will say that it has totally destroyed my life. And I'll say, whoops, there's that my life, that ownership again. What is the story of your life that you are perhaps attached to that you're saying you're expecting? So then you get up with regrets, guilt. People get very angry that their life has been blown up by what they believe someone else's life has done. Don't you think that it's all, if we could just step back and say, it's story, it's words, it's story, and it's words, and step back. once you step back from it, then it doesn't control you as much. Do you think?
Yeah, 100%. I chuckled because as you were saying it, I was thinking about when the boys got arrested and my beliefs and things like that. Like I don't feel like I have not been connected to something bigger than myself and have a belief system that life is a journey, though I was definitely pigeonholed about some things. And I do recall thinking, how am I going to get through this? Like, my world has been destroyed. It was, I think I used the example of a wrecking ball came in and destroyed my home, and it was like a storm, torrential downpour, and somebody was telling me to just wait. Wait for what? More crap to fall on me?
Right.
In it, though, when I was going through it, there's something that shifts inside of you that allows you to know that whatever you believe is falling apart or breaking or destroying or whatever the word is that you use to say that your world has imploded, it comes back so much better. You come out just a better human being. And I don't know how to explain it except somehow all of this is made you a better human. So really, did it destroy your world? No. Do I have regrets? No. I think that this is the journey that we were to take. This is their journey. This was my journey. Somehow we did some of it together, some completely separated. But I am grateful that I am the person I am today, and I can say that I'm not sure I would be the same person if I did not have the blessings of these experiences.
And also, too, the idea of a better human does not mean you have a huge house, 3 cars, kids that are smart as all get out. You turn around and you have a great job and everybody knows you as being a good person. So being a better human, you may still be living homeless. You may be living in a small apartment. You may be just barely making it by on your bills, whatever it is. The better human means you're good inside. It doesn't mean your impression in society. Don't you think that's very important to understand? Because after addictions and after your kids or whatever happens and the story changes or shifts, people will say, now it's time to get those things so that my inside can reflect outside and people will know I'm okay. A better human is when you're okay already. It's not about the outside stuff, do you think?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Outside stuff is totally irrelevant. When I'm saying a better human, I definitely mean my heart is expanded. I am more open and receptive and have a less judgmental care about so many things. I feel that I am a better human than I was prior, and I hope that I keep expanding into the greatness that I think that is out there. Not saying I'm great, but you know what I mean, the goodness, the wholeness, the pure, the connection, the solid belief of the beauty we can be as humans.
Yeah. I think sometimes if we can just connect with each other's hearts, hopefully we'll be getting there eventually over the decades. That's really, truly where really complete healing occurs, where people can help and support each other, just as you and I have shared today about walking alongside with unconditional love versus let's drag them, fix them, shake them, wake them up kind of idea. So I think when we get to that point, it's truly when more people will start saying, I got this. Let me show you how, but let me walk with you through the fire too. Because you need people to walk through the fire with you. Do you think we supersede that sometimes and we say, no, pull me out of it?
I think a lot of people would like to be pulled out of the fire. However, I do think the kindest and most generous thing you can do for another human being is to walk with them through the fire. I think you have to feel, you have to experience, and it allows you to grow and to evolve. If you jump over the fire, then you miss it.
Yeah. And sometimes the fire just needs to burn away your old story. It needs to burn away your old thoughts and your old beliefs. Sometimes it just needs to say, all of that old stuff needs to go away. Your house, it needs to go away. We could find you something smaller that you can afford. Your cars, they need to go away. Man, they were going to break down anyway. Or, those people in your life, they weren't supporting you anyway. They were fake anyway. So the idea is sometimes those things need to burn away. Can we allow them to go and burn away?
Some people don't want them to burn away. Some people hang on to them.
Right.
Because it's their defining factor. That's how they identify, right? A lot of people hang on to their houses and their cars and their friends and their so-called friends or whatever it is, their careers, because they believe that defines who they are as a human being. And I believe that when you have crises or things that are big or blow up, it allows you that opportunity to realize that they are superficial things that really don't validate or account for who and what you are as a human. You're right. You don't need a big house. You don't need fancy cars. You do not need, some people thrive on that. I'm not sure they're happy inside. Maybe they get both. I'm not really sure. But for myself, when people ask me about me, it's not, I don't usually say things like, oh, I work here, I have this, I have that. It's not how I identify anymore. It's usually like, I'm here today and I'm living a good life. I'm pretty happy. It's pretty mellow, I guess. However, I'm pretty content. I'm not, and then they want to know more. Like, well, what do you do for work? Well, it's irrelevant. Who cares what I do for work?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I'm happy. Let's go have some fun. Let's go explore the world. Let's experience life. Let's do something.
Yeah, because it scares them when they're like, but you mean I have to, ... You know what I mean? So, sometimes people will say, but wait a second, I have to, and we go, oh, okay, whatever the have to is, and that's right there where we can look at it and say, perhaps let's start doing some work here. What is the have to? I think also, too, in closing, Lorri, we can say, you and I are by no means perfect. You and I are by no means at the end or at the precipice. We're standing above anyone else or below anyone else or better than or worse than. What you and I are sharing is our journey and how it ebbs and flows. And that's what we want to know is, how is your life journey ebbing and flowing, and do you need some support for someone to stand alongside you? That's truly what we're asking of our children, our family members, those that we meet, and that's how we are in service. Don't you think?
Absolutely. I really, truly believe that, so much so that I just started a little coffee breakfast club so that I could be that for people.
Yeah, it's definitely a challenge where people are saying, who can just listen? And, someone said to me the other day, they said, I'm listening. And I'm like, no, but you're not hearing. You're not hearing. Listening and hearing are two different things.
Completely.
And they were just, whatever. And I go, yeah, got it. And right there, that that's not somebody that you invest your time with. You just say, you know what? Move on. Because you and I can teach, just as you said about, you can lead them to water, but they won't drink. We can teach, we can share, we can help, and we can support. But we can also seed others in our thoughts, in our way that we are. And that's what we want, is to seed others. Like, this is maybe a way, and they're saying, well, I don't get it. But they heard it, maybe. And maybe 10, 15 years from now, they'll draw on that. Or maybe next week or next year. And that's what we really want to do, is to be able to share how that the world is playing out for us, and perhaps if you need help, to know to ask for it. So don't you think that ask for help?
Oh, please, yes. I also believe it's one of the hardest things for people to do, is to ask for help.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, Lorri, it was such a pleasure to have you. Can you share with the listeners how to find out more information about your work? That would be wonderful.
Well, to find the book, you can find it on Amazon and stuff like that. I also have a website, lorribritt.com, where I write about mental health and I write about family drama and children and where I'm at in life. And as I said, I just started I think I called it Connect for Coffee on Sundays or something like that with Lorri. So every third Sunday I'm just connecting with people, and I'll put it out for, the web so we can Zoom and I just think it's really important for people to have somewhere to go with no judgment, no conditions, just to be able to share or just to be quiet and be present with other people that are in their own journey. So those are the places you can locate me. And I do believe on my website I even have a phone number so people can call and talk. I just think it's important to be of service of something to anybody that needs the help if they want it.
Yeah, it's time to come out of the rock or into your hiding places. Many times when kids or family members or even ourselves, if we're in this position, we tend to hide, away from others because we don't want to be seen. And now you can be seen in all of your brokenness because there's something behind that brokenness that's keeping you here. And that's what you and I want to connect with, is that part of us that's everybody is the same, and that's really, truly how we want to assist each other. So I thank you so much for joining us today because it was such a great discussion to help others be able to say, I'm going to come out of that darkness in my hiding. So we thank you so much for joining us.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It was a great pleasure. Hopefully we can do it again someday. I love it. I love the conversation. I'm 100% grateful for this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you. If you'd like to find out more information about Lorri Britt, again, her book is My Heart Behind Bars, A Mother's Journey of Grief, Incarceration, Love, and Forgiveness. Please do click on the link on the bottom of today's show page to go directly to her website for more information. And definitely check out her event on the third Sunday of every month and be able to say, I need help, I need support. Maybe I just need to connect, sit, and listen to somebody else. Maybe I just need to hear other people to see if they're perhaps in the same place I'm in, or perhaps maybe I need to know that it's okay to come out of my hiding space and be able to say, I'm in trouble, I need help, perhaps I just need someone to hear or listen. Do reach out. There are a lot of ways to be able to get help. Definitely check out all the 800 numbers for mental health. Check out Lorri's work, and also on my website I offer sessions to be able to just sit and listen, but to hear every word. What is pain? What is grief, shame, and guilt? It's not a badge you wear. It's just something you process through. Reach out and ask for help. This is Dr. Jeanette-Gallagher. Until tomorrow, have a great day.
Today we discussed many life-changing concepts. Who do you turn to, and how do you know what is best when faced with a health crisis? Dr. Jeanette is a patient advocate. She listens to the patient, the doctors, and the family, clarifies the health issues and concerns, then helps the patient make the best choices going forward. If you would like help implementing change into your life and health, we can talk and see where you are stuck and how to improve the quality of your life. Check the link on the bottom of today's show page or visit dr.jeanette-gallagher.com to schedule a phone appointment today.